Here it is for you guys. Enjoy.
Welcome to another Monday night, another episode of We the Thunder. The Stash is here. The Professor, Thomas Schooley, is here. Once again, there's no shooter. So get ready for, once again, one of our best shows of the season, because we all know we have great shows when Shooter's not here. And while he hasn't been out of the country, he has been out of town for business. And take a look back at this last week of hockey, and I think he needs to stay out of town a little bit more. Don't you think, Thomas?
The Bolts don't miss him.
No, they don't.
Matter of fact, I think last night at Cali's thing, they said to me, when does he get back? Can he stay a little longer?
5 more games.
Right.
Yeah.
Can we keep him there until August?
Right. Yeah. I believe Orozco decided last week to try and get a send shooter to Spain GoFundMe. I will be starting that tomorrow.
Yeah. It's been a great week. Shooters definitely missed some great hockey while he's been out of town, and I think Vasi is loving it.
Well, let's not bury the lead. Vasilevsky, number one star of the week in the NHL. 2-1, stopped 99 of 100 shots that he faced, and an absurd goals against and save percentage. Just amazing the way this team has bounced back since that Boston game. Even though it was a loss, we talked about last week how it was one of their best games of the season. Hedman played one of his best games, and then they parlayed that to a 4-0 shutout against Carolina. A 5-1 victory, and also the shutout against the Islanders, 5-0. So just absolute domination this week from the Lightning. 2 of those teams are playoff teams. Well, the Jersey's trying to get, or the Islanders are trying to get in right now, but they're on the bubble. So those are 2 really good teams we played there.
Yeah, when you listen to the commentators going into the Islanders game, they said they really thought this was going to be a hard match game because the Islanders are fighting for playoff position. And here the Panthers were falling and losing when they had their own fate in their hands. Mm-hmm. But now the Islanders basically just put it back in the Panthers' hands of being able to kick them out of the playoffs. And it wasn't, to me, it wasn't even close the other day. No. For the Lightning. Of course, we're going to see them again here on this road trip coming up. Mm-hmm. That is where Stammer's going to get his 1,000th game is against the Islanders. So we'll see maybe a different side of the Islanders, but I'll tell you what, between the defense and Vasilevsky, and it's hard to believe this is the first time all season any of our players have gotten named the number 1 star. Yeah. So just for Vasi to finally get this kind of week he had and really got the recognition he deserved on this, playoff Vasi has definitely started.
Yeah, I think playoff Lightning team activated that Boston game. I was kind of chatting about it this week on the socials, and to me, it seems like they just got together after that skid that they were on, and they said, you know what, this is playoff time now. It's time for us to start, as we like to say around here, turning up that dial, and they have done so progressively in each of these games. We go back to that Carolina game, and it was kind of close early on, but I mean, it's not that Carolina played poorly, but the Lightning just played almost a perfect game. I mean, It was just amazing, perfect Lightning hockey, and Vasi was great, but again, it's something like they've talked about. Hedman talks about this a lot. If they don't give up the bad plays, Vasi makes the stops. It's whenever they make turnovers in their own zone, the blue line, their side of the neutral zone, and there's a quick turnaround. That's when you're hanging out. Anyone, even the best goalie in the world, is going to let a few through when you're giving them high quality chances against really good teams. And you've seen the Lightning have really clamped down on that in this last week. And for me, I think a big part of that is the addition of Darren Radish on that blue line. To me, he's very impressed me quite a bit. And him and Sergachev have found a nice chemistry, similar to Sergachev and Perbix earlier. And that frees up Perbix to maybe go play with Cernak or maybe even with Hedman. And it gives them some opportunities to switch it up and find offense and defensive pairings on that blue line that you really need in the playoffs.
And to me, I think it also gave Perbix some more confidence, having Radish, who he's known for a while. And then also Radish, I think, got more comfortable because him and Colton are best friends. So they hang out together all the time. So I thought it's really been fitting. And I see Justin Russell put in here next 3 games is a huge test. Well, we don't know because it looks like the Leafs are going to be sitting some people, coming some games. You might have the Rangers sitting some people. I talked to Nigel at the airport the last time and said, hey, can we sit Stammer 2 games to have him get 1,000 at home? And he said Coop might actually go for that if they make the playoffs, but the final decision will be on Stammer. But then you saw Coop come out the other day that really these next couple games, he wants to work on solidifying these lines and working on them being with each other and getting these. And then last night I got the honor to go to the Callahan Foundation Gala, and I straight up went to Stammer and said, hey, I need you to sit out 2 games. And he knew exactly what I was talking about. And he's like, we're going to celebrate it on the 11th. I said, I know, but I want you to play against them on the 11th. He goes, we're going to celebrate. He's like, the family's coming. We're celebrating on the 11th. So he has no plans. I was telling someone that today, and they said, you should have said, doesn't mean you won't get an injury and stomp on his foot and take off running.
I don't think you would have made it out of the gala alive, bro.
No, I wouldn't have. So, but yeah, so it doesn't look like Coop's got any plans on sitting anybody. It doesn't look like any of the stars are going to want to sit coming into the playoffs. They're going to want to stay in this mode and go ahead and go right into the playoffs in this.
Yeah, and personally, it does. We talked about it a couple weeks ago, something on the show, how a lot of these milestones keep happening on the road for him. But I think it's perfect that he gets to celebrate at home against Toronto. Like, what could be more perfect? Shove it right in Toronto's face on our ice, 1,000 games, all in a Lightning sweater, none in a Toronto sweater, as all of them wanted so desperately for how long for him to go up there and play for them. So,
but I thought it was really cool what Pittsburgh did. Did you I don't know if you got to see it. Letang played his 1,000th game last night, and his son did the starting lineup announcements and announced playing in his 1,000th game, my dad, Letang. And I was like, how awesome would that have been to have like someone like Carter or even Sandra or his dad or somebody do that announcement, what his 1,000th game. So that was what I was looking at. And he did in his last speech say how, it sucked that he got all these milestones, but this is one where it isn't like a goal where it could just happen in the middle of a game. This one is to celebrate his 1,000th game. So really he plays his 1,000th game, but they're not really going to do a ceremony for him before the game. So they would have done it the following game. So I understand it.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, it's awesome being in the building for those things.
Yeah,
as there for both of his other milestones this season. So, and speaking of milestones, not only was that game against the Islanders a complete rout, it was Alex Killorn 800th game, and I just don't think you could say enough about that guy on this team either, and everything he's done for this franchise. And it's great seeing all these milestones. Hedman's coming right up on the 1,000th game too. So it's good to see all these milestones. It just shows what this franchise means to these players. They finally put the Hall of Fame induction ceremony on YouTube today. The Lightning did, and I watched that, and it opened up with PK talking about how it doesn't matter if you play 100, 1,000, or 1 game in that uniform that has a lightning bolt on the front of it. You're part of our franchise forever, and we believe in that, and we remember that. And so for these guys to have 800, 1,000 games, it's just even more meaningful, and it shows how much they want to stay here and how much they want to play here and how much they believe, not just in the franchise, but in this city and in this fan base. And I don't want to get into it. I get yelled at a lot for looking too much in the future, but I absolutely see. You brought up Chris Letang. He's playing for Peanuts this year. Patrice Bergeron is playing for Peanuts this year to come back and try and make one more go. And I definitely see Killorn taking like a Bergeron or one of those really cheap deals to stay here. But who knows? He's talked about it, but who knows?
I got to tell you, this flex move at the benefit last night.
Oh yeah,
you probably would have shit your pants because I was there outside with April Trimble and we were getting some pictures with the players. Some lady handed her phone to Killorn, not knowing it's Killorn, and said, "Do you mind taking a picture of me with Stamkos and Hedman?" And the look on Killer's face was like, okay.
Wow.
and so I go over to get a picture with Killorn, and I was like, "It's okay. I won't give you my phone to take a picture of me and Stammer." And he goes, "Thanks." And April goes, "What a flex that lady had." Was like, "Here's photography boy, take a picture of me and these two superstars over here."
There goes that. He's going for fucking $6 million Toronto next year. Son of a bitch.
See, there's April. Oh my God, that was hilarious. It was so funny. I was like, that lady just handed Killer her phone and said, "Can you take a picture of me and these two superstars here?"
That is definitely insane.
Are you part of the staff, sir?
But again, though, that goes to show our fan base and how like we support this team, but we're not out there seeking to find them in public. We're not like pandering to them, and we're not like, I just saw an article today about NBA autograph seekers and how they have like this huge network of people that they can find out when and where these players are, and they're always chasing them down and hunting them down. And
we have that. We have that.
You know, I mean, there's the people that are always behind the gate, the arena after games, and here and there when they see them in public. But it's not like other markets, and I think it's just enough to make these guys feel like, oh, well, they know who we are. That's good.
You would be surprised how many people hang out outside the visitors team hotels because they know what hotels they at. You should see there's that when they used to stay at the Marriott Waterside, there was some of them that would just flip jerseys. Like have the opposing jerseys every single time and be like, "Hey, can you sign this?" Or they would like say it was someone like Edmonton and you had Draisaitl and McJesus here. They would see McJesus come out and they would throw on his jersey and then Draisaitl and throw on his. And if Kane throw on his, I mean, it was hideous. And they do that. It isn't as bad in the NBA, but we do have that around here.
Yeah, well, that kind of sucks. But again, I like with our players, I feel like they have a certain amount of autonomy that makes them feel more comfortable playing in our market. So,
and last night, and for anybody that did not get to go, definitely, if you get a chance to go to one of these things, go to it. It's an amazing thing for an amazing cause. Seeing the players in a non-hockey atmosphere, even if it was Callie's Foundation that was doing it, who's the next teammate, they are so much different than when you meet them there at the arena. They don't talk hockey, but they'll talk some hockey with you. And the other thing is it's funny because they stay with each other in like a little group because they're all like each other. It's the only people that know what they're going through. So it's their little group, but literally you just stand there and then you're like, "Do you mind if I get a picture?" And they're like, "No, not at all." I mean, Point's holding a shot in one hand of whiskey and a beer in the other, but he doesn't want to get photographed with them. So he keeps putting them down. And every time he picks them up, here comes someone else that says, "Do you mind if I get a picture?" And he's like, and then like, I was talking with him and then I go away and I'm like, he goes and picks it up. I said, "No, put it back down, Point." I said, "Here comes some more photographs." He's like, "Good looking out." I mean, he's one of those people like there was other ones. Buccigrass was there and he like held his drink up in almost everybody's photo. But he's one of those that does not want to be photographed with a drink, does not want to be. And I respect that. He's really cool.
Well, you just the problem with social media these days is you just never know what it's going to turn into or how someone's going to try and use it. What that's like for people going and just finding pictures and then trying to use them to slander you or make some kind of statement or whatever. So yeah, I really appreciate about those guys, especially just being kind of blue collar guys the way they are anyways. They just like to kick back and have a good time. So the last thing they need is anybody trying to turn their downtime into some kind of story.
Yeah, I mean, I told you right before we went on, I've told a couple of people, Hedman started to pole dance last night at the very end. Once it got down to maybe 15, 20 people there besides the players, he started to pole dance. But as soon as he saw those phones come out, he was like, all right, I'm done. He's like, this ain't going nowhere.
This ain't going viral. No.
No. But he sure was pole dancing, and you had Hagel and Sorelli behind the bar, like getting ready to serve drinks. It was a really fun time, and the guys really were great with everybody. And then I can tell you, they did not leave until like 11:30 last night, and then they got back up this morning to do Coop's Catch.
On the water today.
The whole team today out with Cooper for Coop's Catch. So it was really cool for them to go out there and support that with Coop.
Yeah. And you know what? I think that's something we didn't talk about a lot either last week. It's nice to have this little break for them too, right? Because we've had 3 days off in a row now, and they're able to, have the gala last night, have the fishing tournament today. And, it's like we talked about, maybe they weren't getting enough practice time because of how busy their March was and everything, but as important as practices, these downtime events where they can go actually have some team building experience, like off the ice, and camaraderie, and get back to just being like friends and like that family off the ice.
And family. Maroon took his family to Disney yesterday.
Yeah.
So you had they got 2 days now. They didn't have practice. Coop today said, I really want to thank our players because it is a grind. The schedule is a grind. It means so much to me. And thank God you guys clinched a playoff spot before the tournament. It would have been awkward if not. And so that was what he said before the Coopers Catch today. But they got to really spend time with their families yesterday. Stammer had his wife with him at the foundation last night. Hetty had his wife with him last night. So they got to do the family thing, and then today got to go do a team bonding thing. And if you guys haven't seen some of the videos, go and look on Twitter, some of the videos. It's really cool. Sergachev saw the dolphin and stuff like that.
And speaking of which, that's a perfect segue because as Chris is saying here in the chat here, Sergey looked fine at Coop's Catch. Good news. That is good news. And also he even posted a pic on Sunday morning when he was out and about town with his fiance, right?
Wife.
Okay, I forgot they got married, right? It's hard for me to keep up with them sometimes, but he was out and about for brunch yesterday, and no boot, no crutch, no wrap, no nothing. He was in flip-flops, I think. So looks like it was just a game thing, and they just decided as a precaution not to put him back out there. Should be good to go going forward here these last 5 games of the season. So that's a really good deal, good thing, because he's at 48 points, 50 points or 50 assists now, I think, for the Lightning, and that's like a career high for him. So he's definitely kicked it up a little bit this year. 50. He's at 50 assists right now. So he's only behind Kucherov in assists on the team this year. So while there are still some defensive issues with him that he still has to grow into, as we talked about, he still really hasn't even played 600 games yet, or whatever it is for defensemen. They say to hit their prime, his offense has come back in a big way, and I think it's going to be a big factor going into playoffs, what he can do on the blue line, and not just necessarily on the power play, because I know a lot of people like him out there more than Hetty, but I just think Hetty has a better chemistry with the guys out there on that top power play. And when that top power play starts struggling a little bit, you can put Sergey out there with that second power play, and they're just as effective. And then he can run that second.
The only thing I like about Sergey is he's more of a shoot first before Hetty. Hetty's more about passing it to Stammer and trying to set Stammer up in his office. I like Sergachev, and we saw it in one of these games this week. It was the Islanders, where he shot it twice. The first one almost went in. They shot it back. They put it back around to him, and the second one went in. And that's where I say Sergachev. But Hetty used to be like that. But I think now they are, you got to imagine they're looking for some milestones now. They're going to feed Point. He's going to get 50 before this season's over with. There's no way this team doesn't allow him to get 50 goals. So they're
no way. 5 games. He needs 2 goals in 5 games.
They're going to feed him and try to get him that 50th goal. And that's happening. The Islanders knew they were going to do that, and they didn't stop them. So, and I think the same thing with Hetty and Stammer. They're best friends. I just think they're trying to do that. Sergachev, he's just shoot, score. But I really think this team is going into the playoffs. If you guys have not heard, we officially clinched a playoff spot, and it automatically is set. We will play the Leafs in the first round. No matter, we can still take second place, but no matter what, it will be the Leafs.
Yeah, and I think they only have to win 2 of their last 5 to clinch that third or that second seed. So
we have to win out.
We have to win out. So and I think we could with the schedule we have, honestly. I don't think that it would be that big of a challenge.
Technically, they just have to get 3 points. So if they get even some OT points in there, 3 points, and they're locked up that second place.
Yeah. And I think the Lightning could win all 5, but at the same time, you got a back-to-back against the Rangers and the Islanders. The Rangers are a playoff team. They're playing really good right now. And the Islanders are fighting for their playoff life. And they laid an egg here. I can't imagine that they're going to not going to try and come out with some energy. And
it's getting physical. Yeah, so it's going to be a physical game.
It did, and it is. And you gotta temper that coming into the playoffs, knowing that you're a playoff team, knowing you're going up against Toronto, knowing that they have an incredible monkey. Like there's no bigger monkey in all of North American sports than the one that's on the back of the Toronto Maple Leafs right now, as far as first round exits in the playoffs. So I just think that at this point, you just got to try and make a statement a little bit, as far as like consistency here in these last 5 games. I think we need to go, and we owe Ottawa a pretty big spanking up there in their barn after we played the way we played against them last time. And I like the fact that we closed out the season at home against Toronto and Detroit. I like both of those games here, and their traditional Tuesday, Thursday games too, right where they, in their comfort zone. So, and then we talked about a little bit earlier, Justin in the comments is asking if Radish has replaced Bogo on the playoff roster. I don't know. It's going to be a matter of matchups. I mean, he only still has like 15 or 16 NHL games total. So
I think we start the playoffs with Bogo. And if there's something that Coop sees that he's not liking in that Bogo, then Radish, he'll make that adjustment with Radish. But I have to imagine game 1 and 2, you go with Bogo.
Yeah, and I would have to say also that you probably are looking at the guy that got replaced is really probably Fleury that is getting replaced by Radish in that 7-man rotation when he makes playoffs. It's Bogo is still going to be up there, but I mean I like Fleury a lot. I just think that we've seen a little bit more consistency and a little bit more jump out of Radish. And again, I don't look too far in the future, but it does look actually where people were kind of like, oh, this guy's falling. Why did the Lightning not go out and get defense at the trade deadline? Well, I think Radish is answering some of those questions for you right now. And if you look at next season, Ian Cole's on a 1-year deal. A couple guys on the blue line get a raise going into next year. And Perbix, Radish, and Fleury are going to be guys that are getting paid basically nothing and play really good minutes for us on the blue line next year too, and maybe going in the future. So the future is probably a little bit more bright than people realize at the blue line, and I feel like we're a lot better depth-wise now that we've seen what Radish is like on the blue line. So if a Bogo does go down, or maybe a Cole or a Cernak, you've got Fleury, you've got Radish that could still come up and know this team and know how to play with this team. So I'm feeling a lot better going into the playoffs than I was 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, and we talked about it when we saw a lot of people complaining on all social media that this team was doomed, first round exit. Then this week, all of a sudden the tide has changed, and it's like, here comes our third Stanley Cup in 4 years.
Right.
So, and there was a couple where I posted, hey, it's just one game, chill out. It's just 2 games, calm down. It's just 3 games, simmer it down. So they are looking like some of the old Lightning, some of the Lightning we have seen. Do they sustain this? We'll see. We talked about on the last show how they had that player-only meeting where the coaches left the ice and just let them do it. And it kind of showed in that game. But now you've seen some of the players come out and talk about that meeting, and that meant a lot for them. That meant a lot for the veterans. And remember, 90% of this team are veterans now.
Right.
There isn't that many new guys on this team. It wasn't room for new guys. So they know what's going to take to get in that Stanley Cup, get in the finals. A stat today that came out was from the NHL. Since joining the NHL in 92-93, the Lightning ranked 4th among all franchises with 121 playoff wins, behind Detroit, Pittsburgh, and Colorado, and are tied for the second most Stanley Cup final appearances in that span in 5.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. This is also going to be 6 years in a row that we are in the playoffs. So it's going to be fun. I think we have one more Monday night show. 2. Yeah. The playoffs start 2 weeks from tonight.
I was just looking at it and then I changed it. We have 2. No.
1. Is the playoffs start
this week and next week?
Possibly the following Monday, because literally they start 2 weeks from today. Right. So
the 17th. So we'll either play the 17th or the 18th.
Right. So just so you guys knew that haven't watched us in previous years, we do the weekly show during the regular season. Come playoffs, we will be live after every playoff game.
Turn it up.
Yeah.
Turn it up.
So as soon as that final horn plays, whether win or lose, we go live and we will turn into what really made the show, and that is the
live playoff game, playoff post game shows. Absolutely. And I like what Chris is talking about here. And this is actually something I want to bring up. So thank you, Chris. In the chat, Chris Longteen says, don't be surprised if Nick Powell is our new Andre Palat in the playoffs. I've seen a lot of people questioning him and his drop off and this and that. Well, he's been on the third line. He's been on that blender line.
He got moved
for the last half of the season when he was up there playing with Killer and Stamkos before Cirelli came back. He was crushing it. And what you already saw this last week, which look who they put on that line with Cirelli and Killer. Maroon. And Maroon has 3 goals. He had a multi-goal game. He had 3 goals this last week playing with that line. So you have roles and what you can do. You're limited in what you could do, not only in your role, but also with the guys that are on the ice and what their other jobs are too, who you're playing with, right? And I think that also you see a guy that likes to turn up in the playoffs is Ross Colton. That's a guy that they're playing. He's on the same line with. And so what I like to see is that there's so much depth on the forwards with this team that they are able to put it in the blender. We saw Jeannot finally got his first goal this as a Bolt against the Islanders. Radish, his first points as a Bolt, 2 assists in that game. 1 assist with Stammer skate. You seeing what I think is a Belmar who has kind of finally finished his grieving process of losing his mom. I mean, the initial grieving process, you never get over that, obviously, but that initial grieving process and maybe going to saying why I don't want to play without her to, okay, this season is for her. And especially if this is his last season, which I highly suspect it might be. We've already seen him start playing much better hockey, and he had a great play to assist on that Jeannot goal that was scored. So, and really, we all know that Corey Perry's going to turn up come playoff time too.
Yeah.
So there's so many of these guys that, okay, Matthew Roscoe in the chat saying, hey, were the boys playing possum? No, I don't think so. I don't think they're playing possum, but I do think they were just playing regular hockey. Just regular hockey, and sometimes it's hard to get up and have the same emotion night in, night out when you know the routine. The routine is make the playoffs. That's it. Make the playoffs. And while it looked a little bit dicey there, March was kind of crappy, but we kind of knew going into March it was going to be a struggle. That is so many games they played in March, second half of February and all of March. They were playing, 4 games in 7 days a lot of the times. And that kind of, it's not sustainable necessarily to play high level hockey at that point, and especially when that even if you get the 2nd seed, you're going to play Toronto. It doesn't matter what they could have done. There's no way they're catching Boston. Right. There's no way they're catching Boston. No. And really all they're looking for is home ice. And really, we know what it's like. You go win that first game on the road, boom, home ice is flipped. Or however they say that works. It that's what happens. We got our sponsor, Monkey Cult. Don't forget about going to monkeycultcoffee.com to go get all your amazing caffeinated and swag that you could get from them. I always forget the promo code because that's shooter. So throw that in there, Matt, if you're there for us, if you got a promo code for us tonight. What did we do a shooter? We can't talk about that. I can neither confirm nor deny the whereabouts of one Mr. Shooty Shoots. But he will be back next week, just so you know. And that's what we the Thunder 10. We the Thunder 10. Go use that code, get 10% off your Monkey Cult coffee, bourbon chocolate chip right now, amazing. Pound cakes, freaking to die
Get the
for.
rum cake. Get the rum cake.
The rum cake. It's pound cake, pound cake, rum cake. It's amazing. Swag out the yin yang. I've got plenty of these bad boys. My beverages are always nice and frosty or nice and toasty. I prefer cold beverages, though. That's just me. But yeah, don't forget those guys. Always a good cause, supporting the National Pediatric Cancer Foundation with every bag you buy. And toasted coconut rum coffee. Here we go. You hear it here first. 2 to 3 weeks. So here by the end of the month, we'll be having that toasted coconut rum, and I'll probably be getting Mrs. Stash on here talking about how much she loves that coffee because that's right up her wheelhouse for flavor. So there you go. Let's not forget about them.
Oh, there she is.
No, Rosa. Hard-working mama.
He's not in Spain. We wish.
No, he is not in Spain. In fact, I'm not exactly sure where he is. I think it's somewhere in the Midwest right now. Who knows? But yeah, it's the time of year that he does a lot of business. A lot of business, man. But hey, speaking of business, like we talked about already, this Lightning team is getting back to business. We talk about it on the show a lot. I like to say they turn the dial up. They're not flipping a switch. They're gradually turning it up until, like Spinal Tap, it gets to 11, and it's going to be metal.
You talked about them being tired and them playing a lot. Cooper just came out in his conference the other day and said going into the All-Star break, they played the least amount of games than anybody else in the NHL, which then meant they were going to make it up. And as of when they played the other night, they had played the most games than anybody else in the NHL. And he said going in, he knew it. The record was to try to go off, get into the break with a great record so that when you had all these games, you didn't fall behind. So, and that's what they did. They were able to amass enough points that those runs that they ended up losing some games did not cost them anything. They stayed in that third playoff spot the whole time.
Yeah. And they really haven't ever been in danger of losing out to the wild card teams. There was about a week there mid-March where I think the Penguins kind of got a little bit close. They got within 5 points or something like that. But now it's locked up for the third spot now.
But they couldn't touch them in that third spot because the Penguins weren't in our conference. So in our division, they had to been Ottawa or Buffalo,
right.
Florida.
Florida.
So Florida was starting to go up there as we were tanking. But then Florida tanked themselves. But we were able to solidify that. It was great being able to do that on home ice. There was a possibility with some games beforehand that we were going to clinch on Friday night if Buffalo had lost that night. They ended up winning. And it was just great that we actually won and was in rather than we backed in
with somebody else. Yeah. I don't know if you were here earlier, Matt. Maybe I think you're coming in a little bit late, but we technically could win out and they lose out, and yes, we take second, but I think they need 3 points in 5 games to lock up that second position. So yeah, I don't know. That's according to Scully's math. So if you want to go double check it, I think he actually got called out for being slightly wrong already this last week on the magic number. So
no, magic number, I was right. I was just wrong on Buffalo not catching us, but now they can't catch us. Right. But no, magic number, I've been right all along. Matter of fact, I had to correct Nigel at the airport. He thought they were at 2, and I was like, no, you're at 4. So the magic number, I've been right. And I was the first one to guarantee it was locked in that Toronto was playing us, because there was no way anybody took second or third from us. And then the NHL decided to tweet it out like an hour after I called it.
Of course. Well, Mike, Florida has to make the playoffs first. And if you've heard Keith Tkachuk lately, the father of Brady and Matthew, he doesn't think they're going to do it because he thinks that's a soft-ass team. I think we could concur with him that Florida is pretty much a soft-ass team after what we've done to them in the playoffs the last 2 years. I think really a lot of what they did is in direct reaction to their the result of the last 2 matchups that we played them in the playoffs, and why they made the big moves, and why they went and Huberdeau and Tkachuk out, or Huberdeau and Weagle out, and Tkachuk coming in and bringing in Paul Maurice, and the big moves they made in the offseason. And we can see that they have not paid off, because whatever his message is, Maurice, it's not either translating, or it's not a hard enough or a tough enough message or a tough enough style of play. And there's, even if they do make the playoffs, there's 0 chance that they beat Boston in 7. And I mean, Chris seems to think that Florida makes it in and takes Boston to 7, and I just do not see it. I just don't. I don't. First of all, I still think their goaltending is a little bit suspect, and they really rely heavily on a couple of guys in that lineup to go and carry that team. And while I think Boston is primed for an upset, I don't like Florida being the team to do it. Not right now. I just don't. I don't think, that's just my take on it. I mean, I don't, what do I know? I'm just a fan like all the rest of you. It's just my opinion. But yeah, I also don't. I mean, I'll look it up. I was watching NHL Network again today, which was actually pretty cool. I shared it in all the groups. They did a nice little tribute video to the Lightning making the playoffs, and they actually talked about them for about 15-20 minutes on NHL Now today. And they had Brucey Boudreau was on the show, and EJ Raddick, all those guys were talking about how this is the Lightning team you don't want to see. It's scary, I think, if you're looking from the Eastern Conference to see the way the Lightning are playing these last 4 or 5 games, and especially the way Vasi has been playing me. And again, I think that we can see what we want to see here. And say Boston reminds you of us when we won the President Cup, but they do not remind me of the Lightning when we won the President's Cup. I think that team's built a little bit differently than the Lightning were. The Lightning were out there just outscoring people, and I think
no defense.
They're with hardly any defense, and Boston is a much more well-rounded team. Any team that has Patrice Bergeron on it in the middle isn't going to be that bad defensively. I do think they're primed for a second round exit, and depending on who gets that wild card, if it is the Islanders or if it is Pittsburgh, I could see one of those 2 teams upsetting Boston. I just don't think that Florida is that team this year.
No, the Panthers have not been stable all season.
No.
They have been the most wishy-washy team with runs.
Pittsburgh has two, though.
Yeah, but we just saw Verhaeghe score 4 goals the other day, his first 50-goal campaign, and I don't want to hear we should have never gotten rid of him. He would not have played those minutes here.
40.
Was it 40? No, he got 50.
Did he? Oh, no.
Was it 50? April, am I right?
I'm pretty sure it's 50.
Maybe it was 40. Now you got me second guessing.
It's 40.
It's 40.
I looked it up. It's 40.
Which was his highest.
Yeah,
his highest he's ever. His career high for him. Yeah. And I don't think that you're going to have a Florida team that can upset Boston. Do I think that they get swept by Boston? No. I think it would go 5 or 6 games. But I think Boston definitely takes that. We did our predictions at the very beginning of the year, and I picked Boston to really be the team to beat this year because for me, it's the last hurrah for them. And if you think about how if Stammer, Killer, Hetty, Kucherov, Vasi, if it was going to be the complete breakup of that, I think we would see a whole different Lightning team too. So it's one last hurrah for that Boston core.
Yeah. Like I said, Bergeron is on that. Who's it's not Krug anymore. Who is it? The other guy. 2 of them came back on like super sweetheart deals this year. Mike, I see what you're saying here, and I'm not trying to just be contrary, but I mean, Bobrovsky's got a 3.0 goals against and a .901 save percentage. He's not the Bobrovsky of old. Spencer Knight is worse in 21 games played.
Knight's not even back yet, is he?
And I don't think he's even back yet. Right. Krejci, thank you. Krejci is the other guy in Boston that took a sweetheart deal this year. So, there's a lot of differences, I think, between this Boston team and the Lightning team of 19. I don't think this Boston team is built to win the Stanley Cup, though. I will say that. I don't think they're built, and I think they're old, and I do think that they do rely still on a few key players. But here, if you keep talking about the Panthers, why I just only have it, and we're talking about in the playoffs, 420 goal scorers. That's it. And Barkov is at 20. So all of their offense this year has come from Verhaeghe and Tkachuk, pretty much. And Reinhardt's going to break 30 goals. So, but Reinhardt's a minus 14. So he's on the ice when a lot of goals are also being scored. So
we talked to Nigel about that at the airport about Florida, falling down, and he said they were dumb. They were dumb making that trade.
Yep. We sat right here on the show and said it was one of the dumbest trades we've ever seen.
And he said that's where they shot themselves in the foot. He said it was just a dumb thing. I do want to real quick get something that we really wouldn't talk about or anything, but during this, since our last show, Coach Lalonde from Detroit got it ejected from a game, rightfully so. But the funny thing is so we talked about Huberdeau and Weegar actually. I think Weegar is just
a bigger loss,
right?
To the team. If you're bringing in Tkachuk, it was okay for Huberdeau and for Tkachuk, but to let Weegar go and not be able to get a deal done with him, I thought that was a big miss. But go ahead, Troy.
So we asked Nigel if they had seen that because they were flying in that day, if they saw that Lalonde had been ejected from the game. And they said that they still have a group coaching chat with Lalonde in it, and that they were harassing him all night long. And he was still pissed off hours later.
That's so funny.
Telling them to fuck off and everything else. And they were teasing him. What were you thinking? Why would you challenge that? That was stupid call and all this stuff. And then Nigel goes, I think I'll text him tomorrow once he's calmed down some. So it's great that he's gone now, but they still have a chat with him and they're still harassing him. And it just shows, like you said, it brings it back to where you said you watched the Hall of Fame and PK says, if you wear that Lightning, you're always a Lightning, even for one day. And that just shows that Lalonde, is coach at another team, and here the Lightning coaches are still harassing him about getting thrown out of it. Yeah. And he learned it from Coop. It's the only other coach that's been
Yeah, it's cool. We've talked about it a few times on the show, but I think it's really cool the relationship that those two and Blashill, the three of them, Coop, Lalonde, Blashill, all have. They're all great friends. They've all kind of come up together. They have funny stories about how they kind of got each other jobs, or somehow they worked together and got jobs because of that. And like, it's just really cool to see the trajectory of all three of them. And it's pretty awesome, to know that they're still giving each other a hard time, even with Lalonde up in Detroit. And one other non-hockey or non-Lightning thing. I don't know if you guys saw the highlights from Ovechkin in this game yesterday, acting like a big old crybaby again. I mean, I thought he was kind of over it these last few seasons, but he went full ham on our boy, Gaudreau. Like he was like elbowing him and slashing him and hooking him for like almost a straight minute. And finally, the referees made a call on one of the plays on Ovechkin. And then, of course, like a bitch, he stands and runs his mouth. And then guess who comes in and tries to throw the gloves down? It's Tom Wilson in there trying to yank Gaudreau around. And Gaudreau's Gaudreau, I can't say Gaudreau, but Gaudreau was, game. He was ready to go. Luckily, the lineman got him back down. Yeah, he was ready for that. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know, man.
I almost feel bad for Ovi because he's just going for that record. That's all he wants. He would have left. He came out and said, I don't want to play for the Capitals if they're going to rebuild. They came out and said, we're still in the playoff hunt. We're not going to rebuild. And then what did they do? Trade all these players right at the deadline. Orlov got rid of him. I mean, and then to a team that is in your division. I mean, in your conference. I mean, it is basically a slap in the face, I think, to Ovi. And I think Ovi might be a little bit pissed off at the Capitals thing. And it's just like, you know what? Let's hurry up and get me this record and get me the fuck out of here. And then I'm retiring.
And we already saw also some reports this last week of the team and the KHL team in Moscow was saying that they're starting to make preparations for his eventual joining of that team, because he's definitely going to pull a Yager and go back to the homeland and to his mother country and start playing for their league. He's going to be able to play for another 5 or 6 years over there in the way that they play hockey. And they're already making draft picks and like looking to sign contracts to build around him, so they have a team for him to go play with over there. So it is a matter of time. He hits that record. I wouldn't be surprised if he retires midseason and goes to Russia with what the Capitals have done to him this last season. So yeah, some fun things. And definitely, if you guys are just regular hockey fans, not only Lightning fans, you like to watch just good hockey, keep an eye on some of these games in the East and the West, because the Western wild card is just as wild, pun intended, as the East right now. And there's like 5 teams on each side that are right there that can make it. And there's going to be a lot of important games for those teams here in the last 2 weeks of the season. Some of those teams have games in hand. Some of them have, points right there together. So, I mean, there's a chance that the Eastern Conference wild card could end up like 87, 86, 85, 85. We could even end up with 2 teams tied for that second wild card and go to a tiebreak or whatever. So it's going to be some really good hockey around the NHL here the last 2 weeks of the season. And that's really all you can ask for, right? Like, you don't really want a league where you go in the last 2 weeks of the season and you already know everyone that's going to be in the playoffs and matchups are set, because then, meaningless hockey isn't good for anybody. So, the race out west is as bad as the Western Conference is as a whole. It's very compelling. The Nashville Predators could still sneak into the playoffs right now.
It's amazing.
Which would be insane, which would be absolutely crazy. But they've got the goalie to make it and make a run still. So, who knows? Who knows out there in the West? And once again, we talked about it here in the East. There's a good chance that one of those 3 teams, the Penguins, have made it 16 years in a row in the playoffs, and there's a chance that they could not make the playoffs this year for the first time in 16 years. That'd be crazy. There's a chance that even as bad as Florida has played most of the season, they could make the playoffs. And I'm actually kind of surprised to see the Islanders in a wild card right now. I was shocked that they missed the playoffs last year. A lot of that we talked about I was talking about with some people at the game, with some Islanders fans on Saturday, that a lot of that was COVID. They were hit harder than probably anybody else by COVID last year. Any other team, they had more games lost to COVID or health related games missed than any other team. So I thought they were going to have a big bounce back, and the fact that they're still struggling or fighting to get one of those last two, although they are most likely the team that's going to make it, like they have to really collapse to lose that number one wild card spot. It's interesting here in the East too. And it seems that, obviously in the East, we have a chance to play one of those teams. First round.
Technically, Pittsburgh can overtake them for that number one. Pittsburgh can finish out at 96 points. The Islanders and the Florida Panthers can finish at 95 points.
That's what 95. Yeah, I was thinking 96, 95.
96 is Pittsburgh. 95 is Islanders and Florida. Now, I don't know if they have any more head-to-heads with each other. I didn't look into any of that. I just go by winning out. Right. So technically, Pittsburgh controls their destiny on that number one wild card. One of the matchups I am so happy in the West was that the Kings clinched, because I want a second round matchup of Vegas and the Kings. I want quick to get some kind of revenge on the Kings. I have never wanted Vegas to win ever before, but I want them to beat the Kings and quick to get that, because I think that was one of the worst blindsides that you can ever do to a player that has been your team face for so long. Yeah.
And put his team on the back for a couple of Stanley Cups. So that was definitely that was pretty bad. Florida plays Buffalo on Tuesday, and then Ottawa, Washington, Toronto, Carolina. So they don't play any of those other two teams. That's so weird that it's different than the Lightning website. Lightning page. Let's see. Pittsburgh.
I'll pick up
Pittsburgh plays the Devils, the Wild, the Red Wings, the Blackhawks, and the Blue Jackets. So they have probably the easiest, aside from the Devils and Minnesota.
The Islands have the Lightning, the Flyers, the Caps, and Montreal.
Okay, so there's no 4-point swings for any of those teams here. So
no, and that's going to be. So I did the math on Toronto and the Lightning. So Toronto can finish at 112. The Lightning can only finish at 106, which means Toronto has to get to 107 or get one more regulation win than the Lightning do. Yeah. So basically, they get 7 points and they're locked into the second place. But that game against the Lightning will be a 4-point game. Right. So technically, that could be right there who gets second place.
Yeah, and one other thing that's been going around the interwebs today that I've been seeing, Chris Lontaine brought it up again in the chat. DraftKings has the Bolts at 9th best odds to win the Stanley Cup. They have New Jersey, New York, and Toronto ahead of us. Ridiculous is what he says. And to a point, yes, but also at the same time, it's just a matter, like, we're like the Patriots at this point. Like, people are just waiting to bury us or waiting for it to not be us as the favorites. And it's not like we played great hockey in March. We've fallen out of the top 10 in the power rankings, and a lot of people's power rankings. We were in the top 5 all the way up until December on a lot of people's power rankings. And so, I could understand a little bit as to why we're behind some of those teams. It's ridiculous we're behind Toronto. I still think that's ridiculous. Toronto has better odds. That's just straight up wishful thinking as far as I'm concerned.
I think by the time the playoffs start, that's going to change. You get a couple. You just saw Tampa just now clicking. So I think some people are maybe scared to bet on them. If this is going to be the team we're going to see in the playoffs, or if the team just 2 weeks ago is the team we're going to see in the playoffs. But I think when they continue this, because I really think they are going to continue this play that they've been playing, I don't see them backing down. Coop's talked about them trying to figure out these lines. Yeah. So I have a feeling they're going to continue on this win, and I think we'll see those odds change some there.
Yeah. So basically, if you want to bet on the Bolts to win Stanley Cup, do it now. Because the money is probably going to get less here than the last 5 games of the season, last 2 weeks.
And Serena did say this about Buffalo with 2 games in hand. They can max out. They have 2 games in hand, but they can also max out at 95. So there's some games there that doesn't look good. Buffalo's kind of fall off. You got to remember these 3 teams that can finish at 95, Islanders, Florida, and Buffalo, it's going to go to regulation wins. Probably, and if that doesn't work, then it will be regulation plus overtime wins.
Yeah, and Buffalo has Florida, so that's
a 4-point swing there.
A 4-point swing there, but then they have Carolina, and then a back-to-back against the Rangers and the Devils, and then they finish the season out with a back-to-back home away against Ottawa and the Blue Jackets. So that's not a great schedule.
No, 2 back-to-backs.
Yeah, 2 back-to-backs. That's 4 games in 5 days that they have to play. And I think part of that is makeup days from whenever they had the bad weather back in November, December. They had like 3 games they had.
Well, one of those games got moved. I think it's the home and away one is when they rearranged Tampa. That was already on their schedule to play, I think Philly or someone like that. And then maybe, and then
that's why that last game
they moved them so that Tampa could play while they were up there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that. But that's why I think they still have a couple games in hand to everybody, because I think they had to reschedule 2 games over that crazy storm they had up there back in December, I think it was early December.
Yeah, just before the Christmas break. That's why. So the Lightning didn't get stuck in for Christmas.
Yeah. So, well, here we are, ladies and gentlemen. It is the push for the playoffs. 5 games left. We have locked up our spot. Guaranteed another second season run. Guaranteed at least, I don't want to say it this way because I don't want people, but at least 4 post-game shows from us in the playoffs. And as far as I'm concerned, it's going to be quite a few. I think, once again, if this team doesn't make it to at least the Eastern Conference Finals, I will be quite surprised. Just the way this team is built, the way this team understands to play second season hockey. I'm feeling I never lost confidence in this team. You watch a show, I know what this team is made of. I know their salt, if you will. And I was never super worried. But I was a little bit worried about them just kind of being tired, and it's maybe they just didn't quite have the same chemistry. But I think you've seen it here in this last week. When they get serious and they get ready to play hockey, they're a very, very hard team to play against. And we still have the best goalie in the world. We probably have the best winger in the world, as far as I'm concerned. And we have 2 or 3 of the top centers in the NHL right now as well. So,
and a pretty damn good blue line.
Well, and that's in that, yeah. And one of probably top 3 best, and I still think he's the best defensive blue liner in the NHL, Victor Hedman. He's not quite as offensive as some of the other guys out there, Yossi and Makar, but I think he's the best stay-at-home, and he's not even only a stay-at-home, because you saw that, what was it, against, I think it was against the Capitals, when both him and Radish were in on a rush together.
Yes.
we had both of the guys on the defense were in there on the rush, and the forwards are backing them up. So, and that was actually shorthanded, too. So, this team is built. This team is built for the playoffs. We know that. We've known that. And it's great because in that little highlight package that they did for the Lightning on NHL Network, it started out with Coop talking about, hey, last season, his end of the season press conference, hey, we ran into one more wall and the Avalanche, they just couldn't get through, but they're not done. And you could see like the coaches staff around him, they just looked at him kind of like, yeah, damn right, we're not done. And this team knows they're not done. And this team is still, as far as I'm concerned, just as easily could win the Stanley Cup as any other team in the NHL right now that's favored.
When Maroon's scoring, this team's on a different level.
Yeah. When Maroon's got three goals in 3 games and a multi-goal game, and assists and all that. Yeah, this team has definitely turned that dial up.
I know we're getting ready to end the show. A couple things though. Shooter's not here, so you guys might remember we did the jersey competition. It ended, and the reverse 1.0, the reverse retro was the one that won the tournament of uniforms. So we'll have, I'm sure, that graphic next week when he joins us back. The other
me off because that jersey sold out. And it's the least seen at the arena. It's like you see one, it's like a unicorn at the arena. I'm like, who bought all those sweaters that I didn't get a chance to get one of?
A lot of people got them signed and didn't get mustard and stuff on. Oh, well, no, that was the Stadium Series. But a lot of people did get them signed and have them. The same as Stadium Series. They got them signed and they have them hang up. The other thing is that we're getting ready to end this show, but it's not going to stop. We're going to go to the after show. And it's only on YouTube. It'll take us a couple minutes to get on there. But when we do, if you want to join us, because I want to debate between some of these teams, Toronto, Boston, the Lightning, Hall of Famers. Which team do you think currently has the most ones that are going to be in the Hall of Fame? So, yeah. So I want to discuss that. Don't talk about it in here. Let's talk about it on the after show. Go to YouTube and tell us who you think from Boston, the Lightning, the Leafs, or any other of those big teams that you think might go to.
Yep. And we're going to skip the game this week since it's just the two of us. We don't have anyone considered for Shooter. And I totally forgot to double check the numbers. So I have them right here. I have everyone's picks. I just forgot to double check it. So next week we'll have one last week when Shooter comes back, and then we'll figure out who the winner is on that first playoff game for the season. I know right now that the Thunder has like a 3 or 4 point lead, something like that. So I'm not sure if I was able to catch up this week or not. But we will see next week when Shooter returns from his sojourn, from his Mecca trip or whatever the hell he went.
What are those Jesus trips? Sabbatical. He's on his sabbatical.
Yes, thank you. That's from his sabbatical. We'll have him back next week. So a little bit of normalcy back to the show. We might have a guest next week. I'm not sure if we have one lined up yet, but we do have someone that's interested in trying to get on the show soon.
And we might go over our preseason projections. Yeah. We did some preseason, what was going to happen for where we would finish and everything else. So it's going to be interesting to go back and relive that. So hopefully we'll have that next Monday.
Yeah. So all right, guys, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in to another episode of our amazing podcast. At least I think so. This has been We the Thunder. Don't forget to be the Thunder.